Okay, students, for those of you that made a circle loom for your clay loom, you are going to first want to make sure that you have an odd number of holes. So I counted mine already and I have 15. So make sure if you do not, if for some reason you accidentally punched out 16 or 14, you're going to want to pick one. So if they're too close together, maybe I would decide to, just so that I accidentally don't use this one, I would want to block that out and make sure I have an odd number. But I do have an odd number, so I don't need to put a piece of tape over that. Now once you know that you have an odd number, you want to make sure you cut a string. I would do, it depends on the opening. If you have a smaller opening, you won't need as much. If you have a larger, you will. I did 4 arms length for me. So I have longer arms, so that means maybe for you, you might want to do 5 arms length, and that would just be 1 arm from like the middle of your body measuring to the tips of your fingers. So I want to find one end. I put a wrapped of tape around to be a needle to go through the holes easier. And the other end is what I need to find to get started. So I'm going to start with this hole here, this top hole. And I need to put a piece of tape. I don't need a very big one. This is kind of big. And I'm going to just put a piece of tape at the top. I don't want to see it, but I also don't want to cover up any of my holes. Now that I have it taped to the back to secure it, I'm going to go through that hole from the back. I want to start coming through from the back. So I'm going to pull this string all the way through. And now this is where I need to count. I want the even number on this side and the odd number on this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I go in the 7th hole. And I'm going to go over this again because this can be confusing. And on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I would double check that, have your neighbor check it, make sure we do not count these holes. So on the left side of my line, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 open holes. So 6, an even number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, an odd number. So even, odd. It's very important. Then you're going to take your string. And if you remember in 2nd grade we did this, there's a story. So we cross the street, we get kicked out of this house, and we go into the neighbor's house from the back door. And so I'm going to put my needle in from the back door. I go through the house, and they say, "What are you doing in my house? Get out of my house." I get kicked out, and I run across the street making the world's smallest X, or I should say skinniest X. Don't make a fat X, wide X, big X. Make a skinny X. So I'm going to go in this house right here. We're going to pretend all the holes are houses. I go in this hole. I get kicked out again. I think I can run to the neighbor next door. Gotta find my end here. I go into the neighbor's house. They say, "Get out of here. What are you doing?" And I decide to run across the street and make the world's skinniest X. I'm not making a wide one. I can't do that. That's not an X. So my skinniest X I can make. I go in the hole, get kicked out, go in the neighbor's house, from behind, pull it through. And I'm just going to repeat this, so if you're following along, you can keep watching. It's the same thing over and over. I go across the street, in the front door, they yell at me, kick me out. I go in the neighbor's back door. Yikes, they say, "Get out of my house." I'm like, I've had it. I'm going across the street to make the world's skinniest X. And you see how I'm keep pulling it tight. I don't want it to be, you don't want your loom to be all saggy. You want to pull it nice and tight. So the whole time I'm making sure that I'm tightening up my loom. I go across the street in this house to the neighbors, pull it through. They kicked me out. I run across the street. Make the world's skinniest X. And my last one to go through on this side, from behind. And cross the street, yikes. Make sure it's nice and tight. I go in this house. Now this is where you can be confused, like which one? Well, I just crossed here, so the skinniest X would be right next to it, not across. So I'm going to go in this hole here. Come up the last hole. Now when I get to this last one, this is where I can start weaving on the loom. First I want to make sure it's nice and tight, so I'm going to kind of pull it starting with where I started, this string. I'm going to pull it and just kind of follow along, make sure that it's nice and tight. I don't want it kind of, like I said, sagging. That'll make it harder to weave. You want what's called good tension. You want it to be kind of have tension, be tight. Okay, once I have it nice and tight, I think I'm ready to weave. I'm going to use this very string I have to start weaving. And at any point, if you want to switch colors, you can do that too. You can just tie a new string to it. So I'm going to start by weaving around in the circle. And if you remember, we go under this warp. So these are all called the warp. This loom is the warp. These stay. These don't move. My weft, this string moves. So I go under, over the next one, under this one, over, under, over, under. I'll pick it up so you can see it maybe better. And then every once in a while, I'm going to pull it through. This first one going around is very confusing because it's like a big mess in the middle. But as long as I'm following, I want to pull it nice and tight. As long as I'm following my rules, and I can even pull it out to see, okay, I ended over, under. I need to go over this one and under the next one. Over, under, over, under, over, under. It's every other one. And then I'm going to pull it nice. And don't let it get caught or knotted. And now I notice this is really loose, so I need to pull my string nice and tight. And I'm going to continue in a circle all the way around. So I ended under, over, under, over, under. And when I do a couple, make sure you don't just keep going, because if I keep going, it's going to end up with a really big knot and I can't pull it through. You need to make sure that you pull it through after just a few. So I'm going to pull it through and make it nice and tight in the middle here. And it's starting to form my circle. Again, any point I want to switch, I can cut this string and add a string to it and keep weaving. So you can see it's starting to form. I ended under this one, over, and I would continue with this weft right here. Have fun, make it colorful, fill up your open space.